we'll call the meeting in order of the Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency, the regular meeting of December 13th, 2005. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me. We ask for wisdom and for strength, and most of all, we ask for peace on earth and goodwill to all mankind. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, roll call, please.
Present.
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 Present. Item 5, declarations of conflicts of interest. Seeing none. Item 6, ceremonial matters. I believe we have any. Items from the public, non-agenda items. If anybody has anything they would like to bring before us that is not on the post agenda, now would be the time. I see Mr. Perez stepping up.
Mike Perez, 705 West Avenue, Gustine, California.
Elizabeth Salazar, 5121 Castlemaine Drive, Salida, California.
The reason that I'm handing you this out is because this is a very nervous situation for me, and I get very emotional, and so that way if I lose it, I can go back and see what's happening. Because, as you know, this city means a lot to me. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I just want to thank you for letting me take care of the health insurance need for the last 6 years. I would check in with Judy Silver once a month to see if there was anything she needed from me. Then when Mr. John French became city manager, I invited him to lunch. I introduced myself to him, answered some questions he had about the city's insurance program. He thanked me at that time and said, Mr. French, if ever something comes up and you need some explanations, please don't hesitate to call me. Mr. French said, that sounds great. Otherwise, my contact was with Judy Silver, which I had contacted her on the 1st of October to see if if there was anything to be changed for the year. Judy said, there isn't anything, I don't need no help. She said everything's okay. I believe that I should have been asked to see if I could have quoted or offered for the same program. When I took over the program for the city of Newman at the time, I was saving the city something like $45,000 a year. So you can see over 6 years, I saved the city something like $270,000. Why didn't I offer this program? Is because Mrs. Judy Silbert said everything was okay. I have received notice that the city of Newman has asked to be terminated from Cal Choice. My question to the mayor and the city council members is the city of Newman covered already by the new health insurance? Because if they're not, that means the city is at risk for employees should something happen to them. Mr. Mayor, City Council, all I ask is a chance to quote this program or one similar to what the city of Newman is getting now. I, Mike Perez, have helped the city of Newman in a lot of ways to make the city a better place to live in. My wife Carla and I helped when the city was flooded. We cooked for the senior citizens and donated all kinds of clothes for them. Carla and I started the lip sync for the Fall Festival, which lasted 15 years, and it was kind of famous. I was appointed commissioner for Stanislaus County Planning Commission for District 5 for 7.5 years. I was also Parks and Recreation Commissioner for 15 years to serve the city of Newman. I volunteered and cooked for the years for Little League tournaments, helping Mr. and Mrs. Spilmer with whatever they asked me to do. My wife Carla and son Greg put on the first show for the Westside Theater to help raise money for the theater fund. I was also on the committee on the school bond for the new grammar school. In closing, I just asked to be treated with some respect and a chance to quote the health insurance program. I want to thank you for the attention and honor of letting myself and Mrs. Elizabeth Salazar from Cal Choice speak to you folks tonight. Is there any questions?
John, would you like to comment on switching over from his plan to the new plan, or would you like to talk to Mr. Perez one-on-one, or what would you like to do? John is the one that, was working on this information for us, so.
I believe that it would probably be in the best interest if I talked to Mr. Perez. But for your information, when this plan was brought to our attention, it was brought to us by not Mr. Perez's agency. It was a new federal law, the Health Savings Account Act of 2004, January 1st. Mr. President, I did have lunch in 2004. If there was this new federal law, which would end up costing us, saving the city what we estimate to be about $45,000 a year, that would have been the time to let us know about it. As it was, another agent, very versed in this plan, presented it to us, showed us how way to get out of our binds. CalChoice insurance rates were up 40%, and I had not heard a word from anybody, except our employees who were looking at out-of-pocket increases going from $30 to $300 a month. We had to act fast, and that's what we did.
Mr. Mayor, it's true that I didn't tell him about that new HSS, because CalChoice also offers it. But in October, the 1st of October, my contact on the contract that we signed with the city was not to contact the city manager, but to contact Judy if there was any problem, if there was medical, they needed a doctor, whatever trouble there was with the life or the health insurance. I spoke to her, she called me, and I ran it down, and I did whatever I dropped everything. We'd get Mr. Salazar, whoever needed. I mean, we gave you service that's uncanny. He didn't call me and say, hey, Mike, do you guys offer that? I feel that he should have called me after 6 years of having you guys and giving you the service. I think he owed it to me to give me a chance to be able to bid on it.
Well, it sounds like, we don't know, I personally don't know exactly, the timeline and exactly what happened, because that's something that obviously staff handles for all the employees of the city.
Well, Mr. Mayor, for the record, though, when we received the new rates, we had exactly 2 weeks before they were going to be implemented. When we understood they were well known before that, and if you were going to raise your customers' rates 40%, and you had another better plan to offer, would you not have offered it to them? Would you have left your customer out there to find out for himself where he could save money and save his employees money? That's my last word on the subject.
I think, I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead,
President.
no, please.
And in order to due respect for you, sir, who has served the city very graciously, but to the mayor and to my colleague, for a point of order for this non-agendized item that's been brought to our attention, and for the compassion and the emphasis on your letter and the service to the city, I think in due respect to move our meeting, we're going to move this on for a staff concession at another time. It could be brought back to the council's attention of how our decisions were being made, because we certainly do look at it from a cost perspective.
I understand.
But in all fairness to you, but I do want to move our meeting, and I think calling a point of order to the mayor, because it is a non-agendized item, that we're not going to debate it in this
I'm very
open
familiar
forum
with that,
and
yes.
take it to that sense. But
Right.
thank you, Mr.
But
Perez.
my question is that he's bringing up points to you folks that I did not make a recommendation for him or give him another option of going with HSAs, which we have also. I called the 1st of October and asked Judy if there's any changes that are going to be made, or do you need any help from me? She says, no, everything is going fine. And then you have letters of the termination that he sent in and did the paperwork. Never called me once to give me a chance to say, hey, Mike, what's going on?
So in light of that, what I would suggest, if it's agreeable with my colleagues, that we push it back to staff, do a fact finding, and then something could be brought back to this council that we could review and see how that process did take place. And
I
so,
just wanted you to know what had happened to me.
Thank you, Tim. And yeah, Mr. Press, please set up an appointment with Mr. French and get together and, talk this over and see what happened.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Any questions of Mrs. Salazar?
I don't believe so at this time. I think we'll just, and if she would please meet also
I am
with the
available
city
to
manager.
answer any questions questions that they may have about the product. This California Choice is one of those products that does have various plan designs built into it, one of which is an HSA product line.
Okay.
It has been such since, for several years.
Thank you.
Prior to that was an MSA.
Yeah, please set up a meeting with the city manager and he'll give us a report back. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
your
your
time.
time.
Thank you.
Is there any other non-agenda items? Okay, agenda items, when an item comes before us and you'd like to comment on it, please raise your hand and come to the podium and try to keep your comments to under 3 minutes. If they're ugly, that's fine. Item 8, public hearings, we have none. Item 9, consent calendar. Item A, approval of warrants. Item B, approval of minutes of the November 22nd, 2005 regular meeting.
Yeah, let me pull item 029624 to precision inspection. They're my 10 at 1220 Main Street. I move for approval of consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Also, 029624, could we have the approval of that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes with 4 not participating. Item 10 under regular business. Item A, Stancog presentation on transportation sales tax financial plan.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, having
Yes, Tim.
attended a Stancog meeting last night, we have in our presence our new CEO, Mr. Vince Harris, is going to do a presentation. I'm pretty sure it will be relatively brief. And also, I'd like to speak to his counterpart, Mr. Mike Evanho, who's been serving as the interim for the Stancog Policy Board, which is our countywide transportation board. Mr. Vince Harris.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. Vince Harris. I'm Stancog's new executive director. I've been here about a month. I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Mike Evanho, who's been the interim Stancog director for about the last 14 months. As council said, I will be brief. But we are here this evening to do a couple of things, if I might. First of all, if I might take the opportunity to introduce myself to the mayor and council, since I haven't been before you before. I come to you by way of my last assignment. I was the deputy general manager in charge of all construction for the San Francisco Municipal Railway. I'm also the former executive director of the Alameda County Transportation Authority. The importance and significance of that, I think, is because why the Stancog board brought me here, because in fact, in that capacity, I ran a half-cent sales tax program that we'd like to talk to you a bit about this evening. For those that may not have a familiarity with Stancog, that's the Stanislaus Council of Governments. Here in Stanislaus County, we would be the Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the transportation body that does a couple of things. First of all, that body sets the priorities for the region in terms of the projects that we will go forward with. In terms of setting priorities, we also make assumptions on the both federal and state funding required to go forward with those major transportation projects. That's important because, as all of you well know, the state's had its own problems in the course of the last 5 or 10 years, to the extent that the state has been unable to balance its own budget. They've gone wherever they could for additional funding, including what I call raiding the state highway account. By so doing, that's crippled what we call the State Transportation Improvement Program, which is the primary source of funding for all major capital projects in the counties throughout California, including Stanislaus County. To augment that loss of, in particular, state funds, many counties, like Stanislaus, have gone forward and developed what we call half-cent sales tax measures. Those measures do what I call taking charge of our own destiny. Not only does it provide funding, but it also provides an opportunity for us to control the pace at which projects get built. Here in Stanislaus County, the Stancog Board, back on September 14th, approved a framework for that transportation half-cent sales tax measure. You have that before you. Briefly, the measure is comprehensive. On page 1, you'll find the measure is comprehensive. It includes a measure that will be 30 years in length, generating about $34 million a year. All told, for that 30 years, about $1.02 billion. The board composition of the Stancog Board will become the Transportation Authority Board, which would administer the program for those 30 years. The program would also include a Citizen Advisory Committee, which would oversee and be responsible for forming an annual audit for revenues and expenditures. You can see before you that the program is composed of 5 basic components. State highway corridors. Of the $1 billion, we would allocate about $470 million towards those corridors, to include such corridors as 219, 108, 132 in the middle of the county, and providing a connection between Patterson and Turlock. Here in, of course, Newman, we'd also be providing an improvement to Stir Road between I-5 and Route 33. The program would also, in addition to the highway corridors, also include funding for state highway interchanges on both US 99 and I-5. 7 interchanges on 99 will be improved. 3 interchanges on I-5 would be improved. We'd also be providing $100 million for what we call local transportation improvements. Each jurisdiction, the 9 cities and the unincorporated area of the county, will receive a portion of this $100 million such that the jurisdictions could either choose from the list of projects you see in this package or add to the list, or 25% of that could be used for what we call non-standard projects like pedestrian projects, bicycle path, and some transit improvements. We'd also be providing $40 million in matching funds. This is a very important element. Some of our sister counties that have these half-cent sales tax programs didn't do this. It's an important concept because federal dollars will continue to flow to Stanislaus County. But in order for us to access those federal funds, many times we need a match dollar for that, local dollars. Sometimes upwards of 20% is needed in order to access those federal dollars. So this $40 million set-aside literally can generate millions more in federal dollars as long as we can provide that match. And last but not least, we'll be providing $250 million towards pavement management programs. Each of the jurisdictions in the county, obviously including Newman, would get their fair share of that $250 million over that 30 years. That is based on a formula based on the population, so that formula for Newman would generate the resources coming back to Newman. What I'd like to do now is have Mike Evanho come up and provide you some details in terms of how we produce the list of projects on the list, and then I'll come back and wind up. Mike?
Thank you, Vince, members, mayor, and the members of the council community. You all have the document, and I think the most important part is starting on page 5, the last page for the community of Newman. On page 5, it sets out that out of that allocation a year, you'll get $151,200 that can be applied towards asphalt overlay of city streets and pothole repair. That will couple with about another $150,000 you receive in state and federal funds for pavement management. As we have designed this ballot measure, the smaller cities, the Newmans, the Waterfords, can group their funding together so you can get larger projects accomplished. On page 3, you'll see another allocation of $100 million, and this is a one-time allocation for $1,800,000 to Newman for local projects, and that's the projects that this city council will determine that you want to make city street improvements or improvements in the community. So those are 2 projects, programs that come directly back to the community. The larger projects that are named, either the Stir Roads interchange for Newman or others, have been identified in the polls. We polled the community earlier this year and determined through all of the 9 cities and the county unincorporated which projects raised of interest, and that's how the 132 corridor and the 219, 108 corridor for the larger corridors, and then the interchanges. I think that pretty much covers the technical aspects. If you as a council have any questions of me or Vince, we're here to do that.
Mr. Mayor and Council, we'd like to conclude and, of course, answer your questions. The important thing about the measure, we think, clearly, as I said earlier, is it generates revenue. But even as important as that is that it allows us to take charge of our own destiny in terms of the timing and pace of delivering these projects, which we think is highly important. Without this input of funding, our project sponsors like Caltrans would have no vehicle to go forward with our key projects in the time that we certainly would like to see them happen. With that, we'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
Mayor, if I might, just one last thing. We're not asking for any action this evening from the council. This is an information item this evening. However, we would certainly like from the council any questions, any additions you might like to have to the framework sent to Stancock within the next 2 weeks, if possible, 2 to 3 weeks if possible. We plan to be coming back before each of the city councils next spring with a final framework. What we need is a majority of the cities representing a majority of the population in the county from New York City Council to say, yes, put this on the ballot. That gives the Board of Supervisors the ability to then put it on the ballot. We anticipate going to the ballot in November of next year.
Vince, if I may, just for the information, how many self-help counties are there in the state of California?
18.
And the reason why I asked that and wanted to have it posed is because it's very significant in terms of what he mentioned when you talk about the $40 million and having the money up front, sort of like in the banking industry, Illinois, you know, when you have to purchase a home, you have to come up with 10% down. We can have this money, and that way we can get more of the federal funding that our Congressman Dennis Cardozo has been lobbying for us to get our fair share of what's called the next T3, the transportation bill. That's billions of dollars. Because when you go to Washington, D.C., they talk in billions. And when you talk in millions, they say, oh, like that's a small amount of money. But I think we were allocated some $22 million for Stanislaus County, if I'm correct. So that gives us the ability, this half-cent sales tax, it gives us the ability to have that upfront money so we get more of those transportation dollars so that we can fill in the potholes, so we can fill in our interchanges, so we're not, you know, so bogged down with our growing economy, our growing Central Valley with our roads. So I sit on that board, so I'm going to advocate it along with John, and I know my colleagues see it clearly. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris.
Thank you for having us.
Moving on, item B. Consider agreement with Newman Cruzana Unified School District for School Resource Officer.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. In May of 2005, the City Council authorized the hiring of a new police officer to implement the school resource officer assignment that we have. It was understood at that time that we would be halving this cost with the school district for salary and benefits. And this has worked good. We've had a letter of agreement for such. That letter of support that was, and we hired the individual in July. And we started the assignment in August. We didn't have an agreement in place, and as when you have anything go on, there were some things we wanted to have clarified, and so we wanted to put this into the form of an agreement. In looking at trying to keep the cost in this an attractive venture for both the school district and the city, what I did was I put an experienced officer who actually gets paid more into the assignment, because I thought he was actually a better mix for that assignment, but actually based the contract on a new hired position, which would be at a much lower rate, because the other individual was topped out, and the other individual would be coming in at the bottom step. So that kind of kept the cost somewhat down. It was pretty much the same to us, but we were basing it on that, so we keep it to be an attractive kind of a marketing tool, I guess, in a way. Currently, as I said, we want to get away from this agreement, and so I mean this letter of agreement, and get into an actual written document here. As you can tell, we have many parts because it's attached to here, as to clarifying what roles each party takes, and when payments and things of that are going to be done. And I'd like to entertain any kind of questions you may have regarding this. It's just trying to clear up something that we probably should have taken care of much sooner.
Questions for the chief?
Was this reviewed by the city attorney?
Yes, it was.
I would just like to commend you, Chief, because I know that we ran into a couple of little small bumps in the road when we previously had an agreement with the school board under the SRO program, which I think is a very important program. It's something that we supported. So I'd like to see us coming to the table with the school district with something kind of ironclad.
Well, it does allow for a little wiggle room for each party. The other thing too, I want to make sure that you're clear on when in reading this document here. We're looking at something that's just going to go till June 30th, and then we're going to. It's a new position. We want to make sure that we have the agreement the way we want it. School district's on the same format of that, and then we'll come back to the council probably in June to renegotiate the upcoming year. I've been assured that they want to go for about another 3 years with this program. So.
Well, I will speak to being committed to continuing to be able to try to have an SRO in the school district at the schools because it's that vital.
I agree, and I've said this before, living by the school, I see a big difference with the officer there. Things are a little quieter, calmer, overall. It's working
He's
very
a
well.
good mix, and it is. The school district sees it as a strong asset, and so does the city. When the schools aren't in session, we're able to use them on patrol as well. So
Exactly.
it's a win-win for both parties.
Further questions? If not, any direction on this?
I move for approval.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item C, consider approval of TV commercial filming permit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm sure there's nobody who doesn't know about the proposed Coca-Cola commercial that is proposed to be filmed in Newman on December 19th. We have representatives from the film production company and scouting organizations here today, Geoff Hanwright and his associate Chris. They will be doing most of the information providing. My staff report just touched on some of the facts that they're proposing: closure of Main at Fresno, keeping the businesses open, keeping the street closed for a day. There's a factual incorrection or inaccuracy that needs correcting in my staff report. The $10,000 donation to the city, they have been working with the business community and the Chamber of Commerce, and they have another proposal to make at this time. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Hello, nice to see you all, council members, mayor. John is right. You know, between Chris and I, we've been in your town here for the better part of about a week, and we've been meeting. I met with Sean and Heather and just about everybody. John, I sat down. We met with Lieutenant. I'm sorry, your last name is Caton. Look at my notes. Basically, we're doing a TV commercial for Coca-Cola, and in this commercial, I'm going to give you a little brief background on what we're doing, and then I'll give you some of the specifics of what we want to do and how it impacts your town. This is an ad. You see a young gentleman. He's in New York. He's at his corner market. He sees a parade passing his block, and it's sort of a fanciful, magical commercial. He gets on his bicycle and he follows a parade as it travels through America. We see him in downtown San Francisco. We see him in downtown New York. We're going to do some things in some agricultural areas out here, to the west of Newman, between here and 5. And one of the scenes that they want to do is happening in a small town. This commercial is about the faces of America, the fabric of this country. And we've scouted all throughout Northern California, and we in particular very much like Newman. We may do a little bit of shooting in Gustine as well, and this would play as the heartland of America. I know that you folks do parades in your town with some frequency throughout the year, and that is what we would like to stage in your town. So that brings us to how does it actually impact your community. This is a real parade. We're going to come with 500 people and horses and do an actual parade through town and film it. We would like to film on Main Street, and we would like to film on Fresno Street, and that will entail closing the street as you folks do when you do an actual parade. So, in light of closing that, I've done this 3 times this last summer. I worked in Grass Valley for 2 days and entirely closed down the town. Chris and I worked in Healdsburg recently and closed it down on a Saturday morning during the crush. And coming to Newman, having had that prior experience, I've been through the ringer a little bit with towns. I understand what it takes. Merchants are impacted when I close the street, and specifically merchants are impacted when I take away their parking. So in my initial conversations with John about this project, I had laid out some possible scenarios for how I might make whole the town as I leave here. I work here in the Bay Area. I live in Petaluma. I work freelance. I will come to your town again and knock on your door again. And it is very important to me that I leave Newman at the end of this shoot and you welcome me back. I don't want, I don't live in Los Angeles, although I did for a number of years. So I just want you to understand that when I come to this town with this proposal, I'm very much driven by the desire for you to welcome filming into your community. The Bay Area, we are trying to draw more and more filming to this area. As you know, California has been hit by industries leaving the state, and filming still brings in, it's a multi-billion-dollar, source of revenue in this state. So an asset like Newman, which is a really cute town, is important to me. So I've approached coming to Newman with that attitude. In doing so, the first step was to go and talk to each and every merchant up and down the streets within our closure area. And Chris has been here at least for 5 days or so on the street, going up and down. And then, I came back and I spoke to some of the key folks in town. I mean, some businesses are larger than others. So we've talked to everyone within this closure area. And there's a letter, I have packets, the signature letters. There's been 100%, compliance. Everyone, all the merchants, in fact, are kind of excited about the fact that we would come and do this shoot here.
What's your secret?
Well,
I want to know it.
yeah, it's something in the soda. It's the secret recipe.
It's the real thing.
Yeah, really. And I hear someone in the audience say money, and that is one aspect of it. We are going to offer a compensation to each merchant who's within that zone, and we've come on a fixed figure to everybody. And I don't think that it's an exorbitant amount of money that I'm offering to each merchant. It's really not. Yes, it becomes a lot of money when you add up all the merchants, because there are a lot of people within that closure area. But I don't. This is Coca-Cola, and it's a large company. We have a budget to do this, and I'm not asking Newman to pay for Coca-Cola's advertising. So I don't want store A to lose money on our day. So we've spoken with the police department. The police department will be able to offer personnel for safety for this project. We've spoken to the merchants, and everyone has, given their blessing to it. I, of course, met with John Fantasia, our mayor, personally, and had a meeting with him just to discuss it. There's a lot of specifics that I could bore you with for probably the next hour and a half talking about it, where do porta potties go, and how do I haul away my trash, and I don't think that that's what we're here for, to talk about the minutia of the project, though I'm happy to discuss anything with you. For example, off-site parking. We're contracted with Damari to use their big lot there at Fresno and 33 so that our 500 extras aren't parking, willy-nilly around the town. We would like to be able to base our trucks around the park. The park typically on a Monday seems, it wasn't packed when I was there. So, perhaps you'd grant us permission to do that, to park our trucks around the park.
How do you announce your name? I'm sorry.
Joff.
Joff?
Yes, sir.
How many trucks are you contending with?
Our working vehicles that carry the equipment that we work with is generally about 12. Okay. And then I have other support vehicles which will bring in parade items. I have a truck that's going to haul horses that are going to be in the parade. I have a truck that's going to bring a carriage that's going to be, we have some small floats that we're bringing. Okay. So you'll see the diagram as I sketched it out there for what I'd be looking to post as no parking around the park. I would make full use of that, and then any other overflow vehicles that I have, I will either park in Damari or I will park within our closure area. Basically what I'm trying to do here, and some of you may know this and some of you may not, a number of years ago there was a project, a movie that came to town, And the movie said they were going to do A, B, and C, and then they went to like Q and P and R. And I don't want to do that. I am trying to set up, for analogy's sake, a sandbox for us to play in, to be able to get our pictures, and I'm not going to stretch beyond that. If I say that I'm going to stay within this area, I'm going to keep those people within this area, and I'm real able to do that. I'm the location manager for this company, and what that means is that I am the liaison between them and us. And if they say, hey, we're going to go up there, I'm going to say, no, you're not, because otherwise the city of Newman's going to shut us down. And that's a real easy thing for me to say. So while there are certain specifics, this is a film shoot, and these guys may say, oh, I want to, change some small detail around this project on the day. That change will stay within the area that I've specified here. And what that is 33 to P, and it's the theater down to Merced. We've met with the post office, because the 19th it's Christmas season. People are sending out packages. I have some timed parking that we're going to do so that the post office is happy. I've met with Ace Hardware, which, obviously is a big, merchant in downtown. We're going to make sure that the lot stays open. I'm not
You didn't have any trouble finding Ace Hardware either, did you?
No, sir, no.
I'm sorry. There's room for levity, and this is the Christmas season.
Yeah, but you lost that.
No doubt. Gentlemen,
that was
again,
inside.
inside joke.
Last meeting.
Fair enough, fair enough.
How did you find us? How did you find the city of Newman?
I scout, so I know towns up and down, through California, and I had actually never been to Newman, and a gentleman who's a colleague of mine by the name of Ed French, who lives in San Francisco, had been scouting for 2 separate projects. One was a Coca-Cola commercial about a year ago, and then there was a Budweiser commercial that happened this year.
Anheuser-Busch, yeah.
Right, and both ads, Ed is actually quite peeved that that we're going to come and film here. He's been trying to get a commercial to come to Newman for about 10 years. So he told me to come down here and check out Newman. I brought the director with me, and we did a drive through town, and he said, well, great, we'd love to come do it. So how do we find it? We drive up and down every road. That's how we find places.
Ralph, one of the questions I was asked by a citizen was, I know you talked about extras. Will you need extras for the parade itself, or how's that going to work? And if this is approved, how would they go about, getting involved?
It's a question that I've put forward to our casting department twice over the last couple days. They have twice told me that yes, they want to use extras from Newman, and that we would like to have people from Newman come and be in this commercial. We don't want to have people driving from San Francisco to come watch a parade in Newman. So I've asked them how that's going to happen. I've yet to get a firm answer from them. My department is locations, and I handle dealing with the police, and I handle getting these permits. So at a certain point, all I can do is keep asking that question. I want to know the same thing, because I want them to come do that casting. We're shooting on Monday. We need to do it now.
Getting close.
You folks, I've spent the morning in San Francisco, and you can't believe the things that, they don't decide on me till the last minute. But that as an aside, and that's an inside joke between he and I. Anyway, as I understand it, we would like to do casting from Newman. How that will happen, I will contact John. I can contact you directly. I can get in touch with the chamber, because we would like to set up some kind of casting. When and where, I don't have the answer to that right now.
You may also want to get in contact with our local newspaper because of the brevity of time that you're dealing with us.
Right. You may notice that on page 4 or 5 of that handout, we did a flyer, we did an ad in the flyer that went out on Tuesday. And you'll notice the big words that say pending city council approval. The problem is we're provided that you folks give the thumbs up for this project, Dean is planning on doing a news story that would go in Thursday's paper. But I wanted to make sure that as many people in this area knew what was going on, so that, hey, they might come down and watch, they might still come down and do shopping. I wanted the word to get out. So I had to get it in on Tuesday's flyer. So definitely, we're trying to get the word out. We're going to do Caltrans signs out on Highway 33 that say, you know, event, parade on Monday, all stores open, so that, some people don't read the paper, so that still folks may come, will come into town and understand what's going on in town. Those were just some ideas that, again, coming out of my experience in Grass Valley, was a way to get the word out and let people know what was going on in the community.
Josh, one question. On
Yes,
your
sir.
parking of your trucks
Mhm.
off-street, on Q Street,
Yeah.
on the east side of Q Street,
Yeah.
there is one residence or more on that side of the street. Is it possible to change your trucks around and put them on Tulare Street, on the south side of Tulare, the north side of the park, so you're not impacting those people?
I please.
I suggest you'd like to keep it close, but we could definitely move it and wrap it around the park, so that we're...
Or I have no problem if you talk to those residents and leave them space and they don't have a problem. That would be all right also.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, generally, like Chris said, these are working vehicles, so they have stuff in them that, we got to access during the day. My first choice would be to try and contact the homeowners and let them know what's going on. If they said, sure, that's no problem, or if, for example, someone was handicapped or they needed special accommodation, I guess what I'm saying to you is if they were amenable to it, I would like to keep it as planned. If they had any objection to it, then I'd have no problem with switching it around.
That's fine.
Okay.
Further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
If there's no more comments, do we have the...
Do we need to hear from any of the merchants or...
Oh,
Sean.
Sean, I'm sorry. I was moving right along, I'm sorry.
Sean McNaughton, I'm partial owner of Westside Associates and Chamber President, 1334 P Street. As a business owner on Main Street, I am for this. I think it's a great thing to Newman, but I would suggest possibly, I was talking to Chris and Jock, and they said that this is something that might be of a reoccurrence. Once Newman's kind of, quote-unquote, found, they might be coming back. And I don't think it's a bad idea for the city to come up with some sort of guideline situation. He had said that Joff had offered his services to come back and maybe assist us with that. Also, Grass Valley has a set of guidelines that we might be able to access, and I just think that it might be a wise thing to do. It would help protect the city and the merchants. And just on another note, I think that this is a big compliment to the city of Newman. Everyone's put a lot of work and time into downtown, and it compliments the city and the people who have done it.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I'm remiss in having not mentioned that. I would like to suggest that for future projects, you have a set of filming guidelines for your town. While everyone has been very gracious in coming here and working with us on this project, it would help you for, further requests, future requests, to have some kind of framework to deal with. I'm 35 years old, but I've been doing this for 15 years. I spent the first 7 years in Los Angeles. And for example, the city of Pasadena is one of the only areas in a reasonable proximity to LA that has this, kind of small town look. And they get 350 shoot days a year in Pasadena.
Jeez. Wow.
And they have some very specific guidelines about how you deal with merchants, how you park trucks, signature requirements, and I would like to, I've been in Pasadena, I've been in Sacramento doing a lot of shooting, I've been in San Francisco. At a later date, if you would like to have me, I can bring Chris down, I can bring Ed French, another gentleman from San Francisco, to perhaps offer just some information to you based on what other cities do, and you can pick and choose from that and say, hey, maybe we develop a set of guidelines for our own town. I would be more than happy at your convenience to offer that help.
That'd be great. We get their ordinances and what they do and put a plan together for ourselves. And it sounds like some of you out there might need to get agents too, but that's,
Just having the guidelines would be a great advertisement for the city.
There you go.
For those people that, looking around, these things are already set.
Put it on our website under ordinances, sure.
Because it isn't a fitness commercial,
we're gonna need to take down some of them. We are not going to need to take down all of them. On the light posts in particular at Fresno and Maine, there are 4 light posts where they really kind of stand out because there's no trees around them. We will contract a boom lift, and I have an art department that can remove those, perhaps under the guidance of one of your public works personnel, if you'd like to send someone out to, just kind of supervise. If there are specific stores that have window dressings that the director would like to remove, I will contact the specific store directly. No, we're not looking to just go up and down the street and take everything down. We're going to minimize that wherever we can. If that specific store says, you're crazy, I don't want to take them down, then so be it. We'll have to turn around our shot or do something else. But I don't need to take the lights out of the trees. I will want to take down some of the wrappers on the light posts.
And the gentleman right behind you is our public works supervisor. He'd be the one to give you the go-ahead and work with him.
Okay.
If this is approved. Mr. Eleanor.
Mayor, City Councilman, I'm Eleanor Beach, manager of Bank of the West. Contacted Bank of the West, and we have no problems with the shoot on Monday. Our address is 945 Fresno Street, and so we're going to be right on the corner. You have really kind of addressed some of my concerns. My big concern is with 500 extra people in town on a Monday is our police protection. I hope that you'll be around. Not that I'm saying what's coming to town is bad, but people can get cranky and things can happen. So as long as we have plenty of police protection, I think it's great.
I think those darn actors can get cranky sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Mr. Naveau.
Mayor and City Council, Bob Naveau, Naveau Jewelers, 940 Fresno Street. When I first heard about this, I was a little taken back, and most folks don't remember, what was the name of that movie? Valentino Returns. And I was directly affected by that very adversely. That group came to town, made a lot of promises, and left without fulfilling those promises. And those types of impacts at any time of the year are significant for any business. For our business, Christmas time, this is the busiest month, and that's the busiest week of our entire year. And so for me, I was looking for some assurances that they were going to do everything they possibly could to minimize those impacts. And I've read through the proposal, and I've talked at great length with Chris and Joff, and I'm satisfied that they're going to take care of the merchants. Wow. Obviously that, for me...
Hey, if Bob is satisfied... No.
For me, it was not just about myself. Certainly I'm going to be looking out for me first, but I was concerned, as you well know, with my history in this community, what's going to happen with the merchants. Because we're all going to suffer equally if there's to be suffering.
Sure.
And one of my pet sayings on the city council, I had the honor to sit in those chairs, was I was never going to vote for anything that didn't impact me equally as it did everybody else. And I still believe that, and that's the way I conduct my business. And so I'm satisfied that they're taking measures that's going to alleviate my concerns, with one which I had not thought of, with that exception. And that is, and Eleanor spoke of it, police protection. I really hadn't, there was so many other things that I was trying to make sure I covered, and are we going to do this, are we going to do this, how's this going to happen, and all of these things, and I forgot about, you know what, a couple of hundred people in front of my business, somebody can get lost in that crowd real quick. And so one thing that, Joff, you haven't heard, and Chris, you haven't heard, and I am concerned about security now. I just hadn't thought about it. And so whatever that remedy is going to be, because obviously every business has a level of exposure. I believe the bank and I probably have the highest level. So.
I will say this too. Police is something that is always right at the top of my list of to-dos when I come into a project.
And I've requested, and the police PD, you can tell me if you can meet it, I think you can, to at a minimum have 4 officers, 1 at each closure point. I've also contracted for, we're shooting in San Francisco in the Tenderloin. I have 12 PD on the day, I have 12 private security personnel on the day before, and I have them standing by to come and work this project. So if there is certainly the PD, I don't think PD can give me 12 officers devoted to this project. Yeah, right. Might worry, yeah. Criminals would be working elsewhere on that day. So, perhaps if there were 4 PD officers, and if the council would like to suggest a given number of additional private security personnel, that I'll bring in, certainly I'm ready to do that. I'm looking for the number that we would like. So it is something that I'm aware of, not only, from businesses, because, things happen, and I don't think it would hopefully not be anyone related to us, but like you said, someone can get lost in the crowd. I just want to have officers there to deal with other members of the public who are not related for safety, and I'd also, of course, like to have security there to address any specific concerns that the community has.
And Lieutenant Stevens has also offered volunteer, what do you call it? Tips, I guess. Tips, yeah. Yeah, for that day.
Okay.
So
We should have it covered, no problem.
Okay, and certainly any costs that are associated with city personnel will be covered by our company.
That's where I step in.
Yeah.
Cost. Because, and the reason why I say this, I'll share with you, I was recently on a movie set with a megastar. Will Smith was filming over in the Bay Area, and he was filming exclusively at BART for a movie that's coming out next year. And of course, with a megastar that large, with the extras, with the trucks, that's why I asked about the number of trucks. Right. You're doing a commercial shoot, so I want to kind of bring this in line and quell some of the concerns. And Bob, thank you, because you've been through this experience before, and that was actually for a movie set. This is kind of an offshoot because it's actually a commercial.
Right.
And believe me, 12-hour days to get a 2-minute shot is what it amounts to. And what is this movie? A 30-second? I mean, this
60 seconds.
60 seconds. Okay, so that's why it's just a one-day type of thing. And all your concerns are very well taken into consideration. I think maybe we can double that number with our officers. Maybe if you have your crew of at least 4 private security to add that extra protection.
Okay.
However you're compensating the merchants, I think this council's kind of thought in terms of that's a good thing, that our merchants are satisfied. You did mention here a donation, but in light of you compensating the merchants, perhaps could that be cut in half and still fit within the realms of your budget? On our staff report, it was a $10,000 amount. I think you're going to compensate the merchants however you're doing that, but that's not contingent upon the city. So maybe if we cut this in half for the donation towards the city for our surcharge account, it kind of meshes us for whatever other little things that may come out of the streetscaping and when you guys leave town, some little necessities. So.
What I would say to you is this: the budget for this shoot in Newman has grown sizably over what that initial donation was going to be. I mean, really, sizably. It's cost me a lot more to shoot here than we had originally budgeted for this shot. I do not want the city to incur any additional fees. I don't want you to pay for any time spent. If there was, I'm contracting to have street cleaning done. But if there's any ancillary stuff that needs to be done when we leave, I don't want you to pay for that. I do not have in my budget money left to donate to the city, just as a straight donation to the city. What I can do is provide you perhaps a deposit check to cover if you say, hey, wow, you broke this light post or something, I would offer you a deposit check to cover that. But I can, what happens when you go into a city, for example, Pasadena somewhere, you have a fee that you pay as a permit, and that permit fee is generally marginal compared to what you wind up paying the merchants, you wind up paying the PD. The permit fee is typically about $300, $500,
It's nominal.
$600.
It's a nominal amount.
It's nominal compared to what you pay. Given that that $10,000 that I had offered was somehow to go back to the merchants. Since I am taking that money and now instead of giving it back through a fund, I am giving it directly to them. I have taken my pot of money. In my original conversations with John, I said, I have a pot of money. How do I distribute that pot of money? Do I give it to you in one lump sum check, or do I divvy it out piece by piece to the individual merchants? My pot of money is gone
Well,
because I've given it to the individual merchants.
And with that, I
Right.
would say that's a preferable way for it to go, as far as I'm concerned, to compensate the merchant. What I will say, if there are any ancillary
costs,
ancillary
yeah.
costs with our PD, with our public works, with anything that we have to do after you pack up and leave town,
Right.
that you're going to bear that cost also, if this is going to be approved with a yes vote from me.
Yes,
Because I
sir.
think that's only fair to our city and for our concerns.
Without a doubt. And what I would offer is to say if PD and Public Works can give me an estimate of what those costs will be, estimate high for me. Estimate more than you think it's going to be. You know, if we have 10 hours of daylight, estimate that you're working a 16-hour day. And I'll pay you a check up front for it. So you'll have the money before I come. And if the city would like an additional deposit check to cover that perhaps a truck backed into a street sign and you got to pay it, I'm willing to provide you a deposit check because in the end, I don't want Newman to pay for Coca-Cola's advertising, as I said in the beginning of this presentation.
Will this be a Super Bowl commercial?
No, sir. I wish it was.
If it was, he couldn't tell you, Tim.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.
Chris and I have had this discussion, and we kind of asked for a ballpark figure, and we kind of figured Tyler for the cost of police officer, so he has that number, so.
Okay.
and then
Okay.
volunteers.
And we could do the same with Public Works, and you come up with that figure.
Right.
I think this is
Yeah, work with
very
staff
good.
and come up with that.
Not emergency vehicles, they're going to be everywhere. There will be problems with getting through.
In case an actor faints or something, or?
No, I'm even saying, like, say if they're moving back and forth across 33, you gotta get an emergency vehicle.
Oh, everything breaks
sure.
for that, no
You
matter
can't-
what's going on.
You can't block 33, yeah.
You know, I just want to say before the chief gets up, I think these gentlemen have been very, very good about meeting with the business owners, making sure that those who were affected the most were taken care of first. It sounds to me that they're very happy. Looks like these gentlemen are going the extra mile to make sure that all goes well, and I feel very confident that they'll leave town, you know, and will be better for them coming there.
Well, it seems like police services have been one of the things that's been kind of heavy on your mind with the merchants. One of the things we've been doing is we've kind of figured out that we want to put at least 4 officers in that downtown area. Plus, I will have Lieutenant Caton be the supervisor for this event. We also have 4 to 6 of our volunteers in police service, or VIPs, that will be handling traffic control and those kind of things as well. If you want to have additional security, the more the merrier, but I think we'll have enough for the event. I don't think they're not hiring criminals, I don't think. And people are going to be happy to be there because they're going to be being paid. So we don't anticipate too much other than just trying to keep the public out of the shoot as much as they desire. So I think we can handle this. We've got barricades, we've got everything ready to go. We're kind of looking at this as kind of like a fall festival or the Newman Fun Run type of event. So we've done those. I think we can do this just as well. So I got all my confidence in my retiring lieutenant.
If you're confident, I'm confident.
Very good.
Further questions? Mr. Naveau.
Just a closing comment, if I might. I'm assured by what I've heard, and the only thing I would just add in there would be that most crimes are crimes of opportunity, and certainly we know that the caliber of people, well, we would presume the caliber of the people that are coming in are upstanding folks. They do have jobs, and however, that doesn't remove the opportunist, and that's where my concerns lie. And so I feel like they've got a good handle on it, and I apologize to both of you for not bringing that up earlier. It just And I also would recommend that you approve this and also work with them in the future and set up a policy so that we are ready for these the next time they come to town. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're not having a sidewalk sale up front, are you?
Pretty tough when you got 500 people out there.
All right.
At least that Monday, yeah.
If there's no further questions, can we have some direction?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'll move for approving the request by MJC Films to film a television commercial in downtown Newman, contingent upon the added security of at least 4 and also the cost considerations for police and public works to be determined.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item D, authorize police department to fill vacant positions.
Good evening again. The police department, we're looking at losing some of our sworn officers and 1 police clerk. And we're losing our lieutenant. He's retiring after 28 years with the city, and our part-time clerk, Tony Soria, and she's been with the city for about 12 years. We also have 2 officers that are in final stages of a background with 2 other agencies, and so we are anticipating some openings. As you know, we are to bring, our department heads are to bring any positions we want to fill back to the council for approval, and that's primarily what I'm doing tonight. As I put in here, I'm looking at a financial impact, but I can have about $800 for advertising and such, and I can fill that within the confines of my current police budget. So I'm not asking for any more money, just permission to be able to fill these positions and start an eligibility list. Kind of get a chance to get ahead of the game.
Sounds reasonable. Any comments? As you say, you're only filling positions that are going to be vacated.
But I'll fill them after they're vacated.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah. You want to be prepared.
I might have a 16-man department here, huh?
You want to be prepared as they vacate.
Right. Thank you.
Questions, comments for the chief? If not, some direction.
I so move that we authorize the police department to fill vacant position.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Chief? Item 11, items from the city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. As you know, Jeff Ennis resigned from his service on the Parks and Rec Commission, and effective after the January meeting, so we'll be looking for advertising for his replacement. We don't have any other openings coming up in January. Normally this time of year we look at our committees and see who's cycling off, and we don't have any, so that's good. We in your package you'll see that there's a cancellation notice for the second meeting in December for lack of a quorum. We have too few people, and so that went out with the packet, so we've done our due diligence in notifying people about the meeting not being held. And also, lastly, tonight's meeting's televised recording is going to be broadcast for the first time tomorrow from the Patterson location, where the studio headworks, they call it, where we'll soon be connected to them directly, and that's where we have a contract to maintain a studio with the Public Education and Government channel running 24/7, with the control of that broadcasting being done by the cities of Patterson, Newman, and the 2 local school districts. So that's kind of a important event, and soon we'll have to make the decision whether we want to go live or not after we have the equipment to do so. That is a bridge you can decide to cross when it comes, or we can still do delayed broadcast. Doesn't matter, it's still our choice, because we'll have control of the programming. That's all I have. I think our staff has some things to add.
Good evening, Council. Just kind of a year-end update on where we're at with the general plan. Right now, we're in the second phase of the general plan, which is policy review and refinement. The next general plan steering committee meeting will be the 3rd Tuesday of January. at which time we will be looking at the land use element policies. Lots of what we're going to talk about will be planning for the future, what we want our neighborhoods to look like, what kind of amenities we would like in our neighborhoods, and how we would like them designed. So that's going to go into a lot of what the specific plan or master plan requirements talk about. So, and then we'll also talk about growth, its timing, its impact on the city, not only in terms of traffic, but also how it affects our general fund and those types of elements. So those are all the policies and review of the land use element that we'll be doing. Just so you know, we are on schedule for that general plan. A draft document is still scheduled to probably come out in mid to late spring for an administrative draft, and then be released to the public early summer of 2006. Public hearings will probably start end of summer of 2006, starting with the Planning Commission, and then working its way forward to the City Council, and we hope to have adoption in the fall of 2006. So. With that, kind of leads me into the next issue is I know the holiday season's coming up. I'm asking you not to spend all the money because in January we're bringing master plan proposals before you. Now these master plan proposals will be for water, sewer, and storm drainage. And those are going to tie directly into our general plan. So what we're trying to do as a community here is make sure that our house is in order before we invite any visitors over. So we're going to have all the master plan requirements. We're going to have a general plan done. So if anybody who wants to come into the community and develop, they know what the standards are, and they're going to be pretty high. So, and they'll know what they'll have to do. With that, the last thing I had, if you haven't gone by down Hills Ferry recently, the park is really taking shape. There's picnic benches out there now. They have barbecues out there now. Probably within the next week, they'll start constructing the playground equipment. All the concrete's in, the basketball court's in. There's a little low-lying decorative fence along Hills Ferry Road there. I think that's a nice little touch there. So, and then also we'll get a sign up there as well. So this says that identifies it as Sherman Ranch Park. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
It's still barbecue season too, so.
Still barbecue.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I just have a one informational item. We're experiencing a glitch in the communications for our water distribution system, the SCADA system, which is supervisory control and data acquisition. So our newest well isn't responding properly to some of the set points for the water cycle and pressure settings. So we're experiencing some pressure fluctuations from time to time, but we're working on it. Doug and myself has been down there in the evenings working on that. And we've been in touch with tech support, Tesco Controls, and so they're going to be coming down and being taken care of. So if all of a sudden you sense a pressure drop, not to worry, the pressure will be right back.
So that's a computer problem then.
Yes.
With the
Any
whole
questions?
system. Thank you, Ernie.
Well, I'm kind of hogging this meeting a little bit. Mayor, City Council, I have a couple of items I wanted to go through. One is, it's been some time, but it had some interest on your part regarding medical marijuana. On December 6th, the Modesto City Council was able to place a ban on the sale of medical marijuana for profit as part of their business ordinance. And I will be bringing something back to you on that very same issue. May look strangely enough like theirs. So I'm looking at possibly in January or something of that nature. So if you have any input or questions or directions on that, please get a hold of me and let me know how you would like that
I
to go.
think also in terms of locale, so if it's ever brought to the city's attention, I think we talked about, I don't know how our zoning ordinance is construed necessarily, but I know it has places for like adult services type places, so if we could have something worded in the ordinance along that as well.
Well, the way I was looking at approaching this, and the way at least Modesto has done, is their contention is under 215 that the sale for profit of marijuana is how they are banning that. Because you cannot, by 215, it allows you to grow and partner up with other caretakers, but does not allow for the sale for profit. And there are no non-profit marijuana distributors at this point. In fact, that's a business you would like to be profitable in, I guess.
I see. Okay.
So,
well, you can't make money, so.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't make much money at it, it might be a thing. But there are non-profit organizations where they can make some money.
Dispensaries.
Right.
Okay,
But,
that's why I asked about
No
locale.
personal non-profits either.
Church groups?
Yeah, we deal with those folks. Thank you.
Okay.
And the second thing I have is I was asked to do kind of a timeline on our response to the preschool incident that occurred on November 7th. And so I've prepared something to kind of go through that with you. If you have any questions, just feel free to kind of stop me as we go. Let me go ahead and start out with the staff that we had. This was a Monday. We started our day with Officer Goslin making handling a suspicious person at the far end of the Barrington Park. The individual had some outstanding warrants and he was being booked. That took him out of town. I had about from 6:30, which he's just about there every 6:30 in the morning, to about 11. Lieutenant Caton was in the office. Detective Hale come on at about 7:30 and was on till about 8, and was in the office till about 8:40. And then we had another call with Officer Goslin. He had another, he'd been to jail twice that day. He had another call at about 8:05, again in Barrington. Suspicious person. He ended up getting that individual with some illegal drugs, and that individual was booked, and he was out of town until about 10:40. Lieutenant Caton at about 8:30 to about 10 was working on Avoid the 12 and the Click It or Ticket grant with Stanislaus County staff in the office. The call from the preschool came in at about 8:20, and they were at 1147 R Street. Hog came in to dispatch, and Officer Goslin, as I said, he was already booking at that point, and so he was already at the jail. The call went to his computer terminal. It was given a priority 3 designation, and I will kind of go through that a little bit later, and was put on hold until Detective Hale drives by at about 8:40. So there's about 20-minute lag time there, because what we do is when we have an officer leave town, that's why we have lieutenant, detective, or myself. We try and keep somebody in the office to be able to handle emergency calls. So that call comes in. The call is actually a male dressed in black urinating near the library, and comes in as a suspicious person. There's no mention of a lockdown at the preschool, or is it conveyed that there's a level of concern reporting, making it a higher priority. The teacher, Mrs. Andre, said she had the school locked down till about 11 o'clock. Lockdown is really what they're calling a lockdown. Is there's both doors are locked, and they don't let the children go outside while it's on lockdown. And then we had Officer Goslin actually go. So we went by. We determined that there's nobody in and around the school at that point, but by just driving by, we have not made contact with the school. We have at about 10:45, Officer Goslin is back in town. He drives by the preschool as well. There's nobody there at that point, and he goes back to another call that he has to end up going. About 8:40, like I said, this is about 20 minutes after that call. Detective Hale handles a domestic call because the Officer Goslin is booking in the 2100 block of Prince Road. That's a priority 1 call. That's an individual attempting to get inside of a home. Detective Hale said he had before, this is at 8:40, before going to the Prince Road call, he had actually drove by the school and made that an observation and didn't see anybody there. About 9 a.m., office staff tells Lieutenant Caton that there's calls holding. Don't say what calls are holding. Don't give any information. And then from 10 to 10:40, we have Detective Hale handles some follow-up investigation. 10:40 to about 11 o'clock, Officer Goslin drives by the preschool, sees no one, and goes to the Barrington Park. He is dispatched at 11 a.m. for a vandalism call from Public Works Director Doug Matoza. At about 12:47 to about 2 o'clock, Lieutenant Caton, Detective Hale, Officer Goslin handle attempted murder and stabbing in the 1600 block of P Street. So normally what would occur is we'd have, as kind of did here, is we had Detective Hale out in the handling calls while the officer was booking. We didn't have, but as you can tell, Monday mornings usually aren't this busy, and we were able to cover that. In this incident, the police department, we should have made contact or at least called the preschool to make sure that they were okay. We also should have checked with library staff. We worked off the information that we were provided, which was limited. If we were told the school was on lockdown, that the individual had his pants down to his ankles, or had been called back to check out why we had not responded, it would definitely been given a higher priority. We had 20 minutes, as I said before, that before we actually took any steps to handle that call for service. And school staffs aren't required to make that second call. We just feel that if they had those kind of concerns, that we would have probably received a second call. And all I can tell you at this point is we have taken steps to ensure that we don't have a reoccurrence.
That's the last part. That's what I was waiting to get down to. The last part that you said, taking all that into consideration, Chief, and all of that response time, and everything that was occurring, a stabbing that day, you know, something that's very unusual for our town. That last statement you said, just repeat it again.
Steps have been taken to ensure that we do not have a reoccurrence.
That's all it is. So that's just a consideration. And I think you placing that kind of priority on it, bringing it to this council, because it almost was something where I was like, because I remember hearing about this, but placing that kind of priority, and that's talking about the SRO and the schools and things that are going on, and as our town grows, that last statement just summarizes it. So.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to bring up too. Is that normally we would have another additional staff member, but that's the day off. Our SRO has Mondays off, and this happened to be a Monday. So,
Chief, where did that call go into?
That went into the dispatch center, regional 911.
Do they ask any additional information, or they only take what the person offers?
Well, they took what information that was given to them at that point. Just to let you know how it's prioritized, they have 6 different categories, and that is predetermined by a computer. As chiefs, each city submits a plan as to what is going to be, what kind of response we want for our city. Those have been done, and that's been put into the computer. Dispatch can actually bring that up, that priority up, or decrease it depending on the information that they're provided at that point, or how much information they glean from that call. And a suspicious person, without any other considerations at that point, left it at a priority 3. It wasn't a priority 1. So.
But do they generally ask additional information?
They are very inquisitive folks. They try and ask all kinds of information, because there are really our link of information, our lifeline to all the information that we're going to be able to have to be able to make the decisions out there. So, and it wasn't like the officers were just ignoring this call. They were extremely busy. Like I said, this is an extraordinarily busy day for our police department. Mondays are normally a, lack of a better term, kind of a quiet day. Weekends, usually we have a lot more activity. I am going to the users meeting that they have on this and talk to them regarding something with schools. I've also talked to Mrs. Andre, I hate to say principal, but she's the main teacher for the preschool co-op. She taught my kids and told her exactly, some things that they could do also to protect themselves a little bit more about the information that they would provide to dispatch and possibly making that second call. Not that it's required, but if they have those kind of concerns, we want to make sure that we put the right priority on those concerns.
Sounds like everybody got a little education.
Well, yes, we did. And I think if you, as I kind of put down in order here, I think we used our manpower as best we could. It's just that I don't think it was prioritized to the level it may have been needed. But again, based on the information that we had to work off at that time, it was properly put down. So that's why I said it's kind of a glitch. That's what I said in the paper. And I think with the education of the school, education of our staff, I think we will do well.
Sounds like all the bad guys were hanging out in Barrington Park that day for some reason.
Yeah, it was surprising. I had to recheck my information to make sure it was the same park.
Thank you, Chief.
Is that it? Thank you very much.
On a lighter note, I basically wanted to introduce myself. My name is Lacey Brown, and I'm the new city accountant. A little background, I came from Mom Software, who we actually use that software to run the city accounting. And I've known Emily and Mike Meyer for about 5 years, ever since I started working there. And I appreciate all the people that have come forward and helped me, and were the happy faces, and I've met a lot of people, and I get a lot of help. So for anybody that does want to talk to me, ask me any questions, run any reports for you, anything like that, feel free to come and see me. I like talking to everybody. Right now I'm working on the budget for '07 and running various different reports, helping Emily with the software every day. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of little glitches that need to be fixed, and we don't have a finance director yet, but that's my goal, to be the City of Newman finance director someday. I'll be working towards that, and I'll always be working as hard as I can when I'm at work. And again, I appreciate everybody's niceness. I guess that's a good word. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. I think that was it for staff. I have some city council members. Mike?
I only got one. I'd like to compliment Public Works. Lights down Main Street. If you get up early, about 6:30, there's a pink glow in the sky, and it picks up the lights and the trees, and absolutely beautiful. Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Bob?
I have nothing, Mayor.
Charles?
No.
Tim?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Did somebody say wow out there?
Everybody's holding their breath, Tim.
And I have nothing either, so could we have a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.